Hi, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and this is the ONEXPLAYER handheld gaming PC. And in this video, I'm just going to run through a couple of different games to give you an idea of what the gaming experience is like on the system, which is clearly designed for playing video games. It's got an 8.4-inch display, game controllers, an Intel Iris Xe graphics processor, and Intel Tiger Lake processor. And one thing I'll point out here is I'm using it on a table, so I've got the kickstand out there. It makes it a little bit more comfortable. You can also prop it up on your lap or hold it in your hands, which is what makes it a handheld or a portable gaming system. It's not the most comfortable thing to hold in your hands for an extended period like this because it does weigh about 1.8 pounds. But if you just sort of prop it up on something, it's pretty comfortable. And, you know, it might be more comfortable than some smaller devices for some people here. So here I've got a game called Pine. Let's unmute it so you can hear a little music. And running at 2560 by 1600 pixels, which is the native resolution of the display, it's getting like 20 to 30 frames per second. But there's a couple of things that we can do that would improve performance. One is we could hit the turbo button, which changes the TDP from 20 watts to 28 watts. Makes a small difference. Now seeing sort of 33 frames per second instead of 30, but still dips below 30 from time to time. And a bigger thing that I can do to improve performance here is open the settings, go into the graphics, and change the resolution. So if I changed it, for example, just to 1920 by 1200, and click save. Now we're at 40 frames per second and things still look pretty good. Although, as I mentioned, not very good at games, and I seem to have just sort of gotten myself stuck in here. Let's see if I can find my way out. There we go. And if I wanted to go even a little bit farther, I could change the resolution to, say, 1280 by 800. And now we're seeing 50 frames per second. And it still looks okay. So, you know, I know some people would ask why even offer this with such a high resolution display in the first place. Wouldn't it have made more sense to go with something a little lower resolution? And the answer is now you sort of have the choice. You can change the settings if you need to, but for games that support higher resolutions, you can play that, or for watching videos or doing other things. So it's nice to have options, I think. So that's just a little bit of gameplay in Pine. Let's check out something else. All right, so here we've got Alien Isolation, which is another game that I just started playing, haven't gotten very far along in yet, but I've jumped from a spaceship onto a space station where I think I'm the only person, but my objective is apparently to find help. So let's open up this airlock. So this is again at the default settings. It's 2560 by 1600 pixels, and this time frame rates seem to be above 30. We're looking at maybe 40 or so, 45, 46, so it's not too bad. Now we're at about 33. There's a little more happening on the screen. 29. Let's hit the turbo button again. Climbing through an air duct. It's always fun. So you can definitely hear the fan kicking in here. But if I turn up the volume a little bit, you should also hear the audio coming from these stereo front-facing speakers. So yeah, default settings, 45 frames per second on turbo. I think gameplay is pretty good, and the controllers are pretty responsive. Let's go ahead and walk across there without falling. Apparently I cannot. Well, that was good. Get through here. All right, well, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing here, so let's go ahead and switch games and check out something else. So here's a different style of game, Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun. So this one again is set at 2560 by 1600. And we're seeing 30 frames per second or so.
I noticed your involvement just now. Tell me your name so I can thank you properly. Ken is watching.
So this is a skiing and winter sports game called Steep, and generally speaking, on most of the devices I've tried, it's barely playable at its native resolution. So here we're seeing just about 15 frames per second at 2560 by 1600, 18 frames per second. You can play it, but it's a little choppy, and some things just aren't really going to look great. But if we go into the settings here and change things up just a little bit, it can make a big difference. So let's change the display from 2560 by 1600 to, let's say, 1920 by 1200. Apply. Save. Go back to the desktop. And now we're already at 24, 23 frames per second. So it's a little bit better. Let's hit the turbo button. Now we're at 29 frames per second. And everything just looks a little bit smoother, I think. 30. I do apparently need to remember how to navigate the game.
Well, this is nice.
And if we go in and change the settings even further, let's say down to 1280 by 800, things might not look quite as sharp, But the frame rates really should go up pretty substantially. There we go. 45, 40, 38. Overall, I think it makes the game a lot more playable. So we're even hitting 50 frames per second sometimes there. So overall, I think that makes a pretty big difference. So let's try another game. All right, so here we have Borderlands 2. If I can remember my controls. Got 35, 40, 45 frames per second here. This is at the default settings.
Got a proposition for you, Vault Hunter. You give up, we'll just shoot you in the head. It'll be quick, clean, and a hell of a lot less painful than what Handsome Jack will do to you.
Have I mentioned that first-person shooters are not my favorite? I'm really bad at aiming. Oh, I got one. And I'm dead. Well, dead-ish. All right, well, that's it for me. So let's take a look at the next game. That was a little Borderlands 2 for you. So this is Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which is another game I find often does not play well at default settings on devices like this, and here we have no exception. It's running at around 10 to 15 frames per second. And that can make it a little bit choppy. I mean, it's very pretty graphics, right? But pretty slow. But if we go in and try changing the resolution, that can make a big difference. So by default, it's going to be 2560 by 1440, but we can change it to something lower, like, let's try 1600 by 900, see if that looks any better. Still pretty low frame rates here. So let's hit the turbo button. Could be better. Of course, now it's a little bit hard to see behind my info meters here. So 1280 by 720 is as low as it's going to let us go. Let's go ahead and try that. So now we've got turbo and lower resolution, and still not great, but better. 24, 22. Well, that could have gone better. But the frame rates were 25 to 30, so that wasn't too bad. All right, and for the last game, I'm just going to do a little quick run here of Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. Just remind myself the controls a little bit. Okay, jump. So we're seeing over 40 frames per second here. Gotta stop doing that. Oh, come on. All right, so this is pretty playable, I think, at the default. So that's more of a 2.5D arcade style game, I think. And current evidence to the contrary, it's more the style of game that I think I enjoy playing. Grew up on Mario Brothers style games. But you don't necessarily need a high-powered console to play a game like this. It is nice having the built-in controls, though, obviously, and the nice big screen, so it looks pretty good. So that is the conclusion of my little video game tour. Took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to, but hopefully you got something out of it in terms of just sort of seeing what it's like to play games on this device. You can find other details looking at what do all these buttons do, what's the general impression that I have of it, and can you run Linux on it in other videos. So stay tuned to littleputing.com and Littleputing's YouTube channel for more information about the ONEXPLAYER, which is a handheld gaming device from One Netbook.